This is Stephen Byer from Unearthed Films.
This is Eric Stanzi.
This is Fred Vogel.
This is Krandamit Stake.
This is Scott Philip Gergens, director of 29 Needles, and you are experiencing Sadistic Cinema.
Sadistic Cinema.
Sadistic Cinema!
This is Sadistic Cinema.
Welcome to the darkest side of the internet. This is Sadistic Cinema. And as always, I am your host, David Gibson, and with me, my partner, Stephen Nemeth. How you doing tonight, Stephen?
I'm doing great, David, and I'm always excited for our guests, and definitely excited tonight because this was a fun movie, and to speak with the creative talents behind it and the people to help bring it to life is going to be really fun. And we haven't had a group of people on in a while, so we'll try to keep this organized for everyone.
Well, let's just jump into it. We have the writer, director behind Peckerhead, Martthew John Lawrence. Martthew, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Oh, great, man. It's great to have you on. And we have a couple of your cast members here as well. We have the fellow who plays the titular character, Uncle Peckerhead, David Littleton. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. Hey, everybody.
Oh, awesome, David. And we have the fellow who plays the character Max and also wrote the music for the band Duh in the movie, Jeff Riddle. Jeff, thanks for coming on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, I just have to say I've seen Uncle Peckerhead twice now. I think I saw it maybe a couple days after it dropped digitally. I was roped in by that awesome review that you guys got on Bloody Disgusting. But I saw it, and after I saw it, it might have been the same night or next day. I was like, I have to friend Martthew on Facebook and have to get him on the show. So, guys, awesome job on the movie.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
Well, Martthew, now this was your baby. You wrote and directed it. What's the concept behind this? How did it start?
Well, it was a bunch of ideas that kind of came together, like a right place, right time. I had this idea to do more of a three-piece punk band that lives in this row house, and inexplicably there's this old hillbilly that lives with them. And I was kind of pitching it like no joke, no exaggeration, like a sitcom. Like something that would play on like Adult Swim and, like a typical, 4 or 5 rotating sets and like a live studio audience. And I always, pitched it as a punk rock Full House with a redneck Mr. Belvedere. And what had happened is that idea really wasn't getting me in any doorways or in any meetings. So I had basically also wanted to kind of depict the life of a touring band. And I had also been producing a bunch of horror movies. So I basically kind of I wanted to do a horror movie, and comedy is kind of like a sweet spot for me. So I kind of combined a bunch of ideas that I had into what became Uncle Peckerhead.
Now, in Uncle Peckerhead, in my early years, in my late teens and early 20s, I played music, which is a terrible thing for anybody to have to go through, unfortunately.
Yeah, I hear you.
I remember playing, my first show was at a kegger where I played on a deck and got free beer, and that was my compensation with my band. So I really related to the realistic way, but at the same time with comedy that you showed the band going through. And I don't know too much about your history, but I'm guessing that was part of your life at one time.
Yeah, I'm like all during high school and into college, and then right after college was probably the most serious I got with playing music. I was in a band and we released a record and toured for the better part of a year. So I had like those hellish experiences that many like musicians had. But I wouldn't like the reason what really inspired me, 10 years past that time, was people like Jeff, who is like a really good friend of mine, and a lot of our friends who are currently playing music and continue to tour and kind of like do a lot of their experiences, just still being on the road. I found that like we all kind of had a universal experience. Now, some of us, like Jeff and our friends, obviously are having more successes now, but we all kind of had those first kind of like growing pains of being in a DIY band that was kind of trying to live, hand to mouth on the road.
And I guess I'm not a filmmaker, but Steven has done some filmmaking and done some DP work, so he knows a little better than I do. But I think there's a correlation between filmmaking and being in a band, because people think it's so glamorous, but they don't realize how hard you have to work for a lot of times no money at all.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the experience of making this micro-budget film really kind of resembled the experiences of a touring band, because on a micro-budget, you're begging, you're borrowing, you're stealing, you're constantly on the move, you're constantly trying to kind of like every inch you're giving you take a mile, and there's so many, like the highs are super high, but the lows are as low as you can be, and you just have a lot of strong personalities and people that hopefully really care about the like what you're creating, but you just like there's a lot of friction both from just like outside forces and inside. So it felt very meta as we were making it.
Now, one thing I have to mention, and I'm not an ass kisser just because you guys are on a show. That's not my MO. But this is the first time we're meeting. But I absolutely enjoyed the movie, and so far it's one of my favorite of the year. One of the main reasons that is the chemistry and the relatability of the characters. And David knocks it out of the park. I think Peckerhead is just such an amazing character, and it's awesome, David, and also just the chemistry between David and the rest of the band, including Jeff. Did you guys already know each other, or how did you build that chemistry?
No, some people who worked on the film knew each other previously, like Jeff and Matt worked together extensively, but they've known each other for like a decade or more than that. But the way that we kind of, the four of us built chemistry together was a lot of times we were housed, like Jeff and I lived together the entire time we shot. And and then Ruby and Chet lived together, and we would we'd roll out of bed and grab an iced coffee or donuts or whatever, and then go pick up the girls, and then we would all drive to set in that actual van. So I think it just naturally kind of, and we all got along, and so I think that naturally just kind of bled into the film.
It was like a punk rock summer camp. I mean, yeah, we really did kind of live as a band almost. Just as David said, I would drive us around every day. That was my old van, and yeah, and we would get ice cream together, Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but almost. We loved each other, and we lived together, and we'd be, driving sometimes hours, one way, then, shoot all day, and then have to drive hours back. So, I mean, we really were like the band that you see in the movie with, all of us listening to punk music and just getting, in the mood and driving around, and, it was great.
Now the performances. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just gonna say from a director's point of view, like that's one of the most heartening things of making the movie, is how the core four kind of really became thick as thieves, a couple of days in, and even the reason why, and it means so much that you said that the relationships in the film seem so authentic, is like, I think they really were, because like even now, David, Jeff, and I, and like a bunch of people that are involved in the movie, like we have like Zoom game nights every Friday and stuff like that. So like, even after the movie was done, we still, remained, and especially the cast remained really good friends, and we still hang out and shoot the shit.
I think that, the authenticity that you were speaking of with the camaraderie, and the rapport that they seem to have together, that felt very real. Also, the comedy in it felt very natural and sincere too. It didn't feel forced, just like the relationships didn't seem forced, or the performances didn't seem forced at all either. And it almost seemed like if it was presented a different way, or if the lens had a different perspective on it, it might not, have come across as much comedy. And the comedy isn't, like I said, it's not over the top or like as gag oriented as like Marx Brothers or something like that. But it, I guess, is the perception of what's going on. And for somebody that, has done the DIY art thing and, played music and done filmmaking, a lot of those things, some of that comedy is based on pain, I felt, and the frustration with the situation and just the absurdity of life. And it just felt very natural coming from everybody there. How long did it take you to write this screenplay?
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to say because it's one of the quickest screenplays I've ever written. In that, like, I think I started writing it seriously in like the late spring or summer, and then by like November of that same year, I had basically the draft that we would use to make the film, like the shooting script. So, for me, usually it takes me like over a year to really feel like I have a really decent draft of the previous screenplays I've written or films I've made. This one came a lot quicker. It means, again, like, not to keep saying the same thing, but it means a lot that you picked up on like the sincerity is like the one thing, like of the comedies I love, or just even the horror movies I love. There's most of them seem to have a heart behind them, where the character, you could tell the writer really loves the characters. You can tell the characters really love one another, again, to a certain extent, depending on which characters you're talking about. But like, and the one thing that I loved about the cast is the cast really, like, even though it's like, an absurdist comedy, we're really like invested in trying to kind of, flesh out their character more and kind of like understand what it sounds so corny, but like what made their character tick. And they took the situation, like you said, they take the situation seriously, even though it's a completely absurd, outrageous, surreal situation. Every scene, they're really kind of playing the scene, dramatically or in like a real way, which is like, again, like from my end, I couldn't have asked for anything more.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it was very grounded, and I think that's why all of it works and why it isn't. I'm willing to accept that there's a world where Uncle Peckerhead exists, and everything that comes with him. And it's kind of odd, like, I guess in some movies where there's a monster or something that will lead to danger, violence, death, gore, or anything like that. I have a different relationship with the film and the rhythm of it when it's happening, and I was just along for the ride with these characters that seem like people that I've known. Did you write this with these characters in mind, or did you have like a cast in your mind as you were writing it, or did you just make these characters up completely and then they inhabited them?
Yeah, I mean, they just kind of came out of me. I mean, I knew before I was like writing this in earnest that I wanted Jeff to play Max, just because I think Jeff is like an insanely funny comedic actor, and I think he's an amazing musician. And we had kind of talked about doing a project like this where he could write the music, and we could kind of like he always says, create a fake band with real music or with a real record. But yeah, I mean, like Judy is, a distillation of kind of how I felt when I've been in bands, or even, when you're kind of heading the production as a director and producer, especially when I was doing like kind of micro budget short films. I always felt I was kind of like pushing too hard, and like at times I would sell my soul or kind of sell myself out to kind of like, try and get it in or get it in the can. But all those characters, I mean, even Jeff, I didn't write it because I think Jeff is like that character. I kind of wrote these characters just kind of like straight off the brain, and then luckily, like, I lucked out on having like an amazing cast who really, I mean, like, you could read the script and it really doesn't become the movie you see without specifically, Chet, Ruby, David, and Jeff, because I think they completely gave each character its that very specific and like nuanced voice.
Well, I was going to say Judy is probably who I relate to the most, just because I can be uptight and anxious and very goal-oriented, and sometimes I leave people behind me, and sometimes it drives me absolutely insane, especially back in my younger days. I've been able to be a little more laid back as I've gotten older, but I definitely related to Judy's plight. But we're so interested in talking to you guys. I should have asked this first off. Matt, can you just give us a little synopsis about Uncle Peckerhead in your own words?
Sure. It's about a three-piece punk band that embarks on their very first tour. And in order to go on said tour, they need a van, and in steps Uncle Peckerhead, or Peck. And he is a redneck roadie merch guy who just so happens to turn into a monster at midnight.
Awesome. That hits it right on the head. And I want to talk about the character Peck, Uncle Peckerhead. It's really, I would think, really hard to make us like somebody who is eating people. Yeah. And David, your performance is so charming. It's one of the highlights of what I've seen in indie horror, and I think it's amazing. What was between Matt and David? How did you balance writing that, and David, how did you balance acting that?
I mean, I'll just talk about it from the writing perspective really quick, and then let David take over. But I think really, like, a character like that, even on paper, it's such kind of a tightrope walk in that, he's such a bombastic, kind of like crazy, like a big swing type of character. But it can come off super hokey or hack, or like just kind of one note, one dimensional. And I think it was really, David kind of understanding what we were going for with the film as a whole. But also, really kind of bringing the depth to that character that, like you said, you would care. But David, I'm sure you thought about this a lot more than I have.
Well, mostly it's there on the page. It's all there in the script. And Matt and I had a couple of meetings before the beginning of principal photography, and yeah, and another tool that Matt gave us was a kind of a one-sheet kind of bio of our characters that we didn't share with anybody else. And so I got a little bit of a backstory that's not included in the script, but I think the reason that he comes across as so charming is it's an absolute necessity for him to survive. Like, he has to charm everyone, because otherwise, people would be chasing him with, torches and pitchforks. So if he can ingratiate himself into the situation by being charming, by making himself kind of necessary, then he gets to live another day,
And I loved the way that the character's introduced, because you have somebody kind of playing redneckish, a slant with that drawl, and then he's talking about the ills of capitalism. I just thought it was so.
Yeah.
It's totally unexpected, and I thought it was really brilliant to introduce him that way.
Yeah.
Well, and I think what's also cool about his character, if I could chime in for a second, is just he's also just inherently like tolerant of these like weirdo punk kids. Like, it's just like I think that was one of my favorite parts, how he just kind of, you would think, and me also being from the South, I talked to you boys about that earlier. We're all from Charleston. I think that's kind of a cool thing in his character, is like you would expect him to stereotypically be like, who are these kids, and that doesn't even really ever come up, and probably because he's so used to being the outcast that he's just happy to have anybody take him in, which is kind of
I
what punk rock
expected
is about
him
anyway.
I expected him to be a little more standoffish or mistrusting,
Right?
people, guarding a secret, and then the reality of what he is and can become. And then, like, as fast as like he took to them and accepted them, I was just like, oh, okay, this is different.
Well, and I think that's the crux of
And
this.
it was really endearing, and it just pulled me in even more.
I think that's sort of the crux of the whole thing too, where that's sort of what punk rock is anyway. It's supposed to accept everybody, and it's like that's where it all fits in. Like we all, all the freaks kind of just came together, and we're all looking to be accepted.
Yeah.
Now, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean, and I think Jeff's really kind of like focusing it in a nice way, in that, like, one of the things that I know, like, we had talked about, like, way back when we did, like, the only reading of the main four, is that, they are this band of misfits, and it's like, you can tell that, like, even though, it kind of sours toward the end, that, they're kind of this, with Peck, like, especially, this kind of weird family, this weird nuclear family of kind of a single mom with her two kids and kind of like the crazy brother. And it's like, all of them, like, are an actual, like blood related family, but they're all these kind of misfits that, like, kind of found themselves because, found each other because they were kind of like all, like, they were these kind of eccentric, weird, like misfits. And Peckerhead, like, sees that in them, and despite having, the age difference or the generation difference, they're all looking for kind of the same thing, is this ability to kind of connect and be able to have kind of like this makeshift fucked up nuclear family.
And just to touch on the relationship there. Now, I'm very analytical about film, and sometimes I read things that are not there, but I will just put this out there. I saw it as almost a metaphor for the relationship, the age difference and the fact that Peck is a monster. I saw it as almost a metaphor for Trump America, how we have these older family members who we thought were amazing until they start following some racist fascist, and then our whole idea of them changes.
You hit it on the head, baby.
Yeah, David, that is, that is probably one of the things that inspired the actual writing process the most, is as I was writing this and kind of exploring that issue of kind of this generational divide, but even beyond that, like, right around the time I was writing this, it was like a year into the Trump presidency, where a bunch of the editorials I was reading were talking about this forgotten Trump voter, and how, it's this older white blue collar working class male, and they're, even though, they just want to see it blown up because they feel like they've been left behind, and they're like, these are the uncles that you're arguing politics with at the dinner table. And that's kind of how I saw Peck, is like, in reality, like, I have an uncle that can be considered one of those individuals, and it's like he's like a charming guy, he's fun, he's a great dude to have a beer with if you're not talking politics. But the idea that, somebody's willing to, even if they don't say that they support it out loud, are willing to look the other way, hold their nose, and vote for a fucking fascist. It's crazy. And it's like, that's kind of Peck's thing, is like, once they kind of put their foot down and say, listen, this is wrong, he's willing to burn it all down. He has no qualms about ruining it for everyone, not just himself, but he'll take the whole band down with him.
I like how when they first realize what's going on, he's like, give me a minute, let me take you out to eat, let me explain what's going on here or something. Yeah. I'm just like, what? Like, I couldn't imagine, like, okay, somebody's like, okay, I'm a werewolf, but I need to explain to you this. It's like, no, you could eat me if the situation is right, so.
Well, and then there's the part about compromising your morals, because, everybody in the band knows it's fucked up, but we're kind of like, we'll hear you out. And then it benefits us because we're like, well, he did, and it's kind of like, well, what is your price? What are you willing to compromise your morals for,
And I really respect that in a film that's this is kind of a, if you don't look deep, it's a lighthearted, fun film, and it does have a lot of heart to it. But it's still, if you look at it deep enough, it has something to say, and I really enjoy writing like that.
Oh man, that means so much. It means so much that you picked up on that.
Yeah, I think the generational gap right now that we're dealing with in this country is probably the worst that there ever been. I mean, if me and my dad, just music wise, like I grew up loving Black Sabbath and I listened to his Jimi Hendrix and stuff. But if you look at, I'm 41. When I speak to somebody who's 15, it seems like that gap between me and that 15-year-old is so much more huge than that gap when I was 15 and my dad was, 35, 40 years old.
Totally.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you really hit it on the head with that. Now you said that there's one sheets behind these characters, and I think the film, without giving anything away, is left pretty wide open. And I think there's many ways you can go. Is this something that it all depends on enough people seeing it, but is this something that you would like to see writing more films in this universe?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I have already. So like, there's two ways that I would love to make this like a universe, as you said. And we have kind of dabbled in that the short film I did before this, Larry Gun Demon, and Jeff's old band, their music video that I directed, The Holy Mess, definitely have nods to this universe and the band Duh. So like, yeah, I mean, I would love to kind of take it in two different ways of like, I would love to do a sequel to Uncle Peckerhead. It does kind of have this open-endedness to it, and I really, like, when I first started writing it, the movie went beyond that moment, but then it made it way too long. It would have been like, it would have been an epic. But yeah, but then I have a bunch of like other, just in the same world of, creating a bunch of like fake bands that all kind of traffic in this same like kind of these towns and these kind of characters kind of weaving in and out of like other narratives and other films. But I'm totally game, and I already have a couple scripts written that deal with the Peckerhead world or the Duh universe.
Yeah, I want to see more Max and Shiloh.
Oh man, I've died.
Dude, I want to see that too, man.
I want to see a universe where Max beats the hell out of Shiloh.
So Shiloh, is that Dominion Rising?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have your own Dominion Rising in your past?
Yeah. I mean,
haven't we all?
Got on your nerves. But I mean, the specific, the one that keeps reoccurring.
Yeah, like, I mean, what's kind of weird about that is like, yeah, there was like when I've been in, I would say I was in like 3 bands that I would consider like we released something and we would play shows. And whenever, you're in those bands, especially like the more local you are, there are like other bands that are around the same age and you're playing the same clubs or you're on the same bills like fairly often. And there's always, inevitably, at least with me, there would be like just one insufferable band, or even if the band was okay, the singer would be insufferable or a band member. But this was really, I mean, Shiloh is based on, because I also work in academia, and like, some people that work in academia are some of the most insufferable, like so like unaware, like just so blind of their own like how fucking annoying they are. And so like this is just kind of a combination of Ryan Conrath, who played Shiloh. That was kind of a character that we would joke around with when we lived in Boston together and we were doing skits, and he was this kind of pretentious philosophy student. So I basically was like, hey, just try and harness that character. And then I would just send him, because I really started getting obsessed with interviews with like Jared Leto from 30 Seconds to Mars when he was the guy from 30 Seconds to Mars. And I would watch these videos of him kind of like pontificating and like comparing his actions to like Christ-like, just fucking crazy shit. So I would just send Ryan these videos and I'd be like, dude, just study his body language, study like his cadence, study the way in which he reflects on stuff. And that's kind of the voice I wanted. But yeah.
My two favorite, the 2 parts I think are funniest is the metalheads. That's awesome. But when Dominion Rising is playing their like new metal Rollins band music.
Yeah.
and then everybody is just staring at them in horror.
the
I was
lyrics,
laughing my ass off.
So is that you, Jeff? Are the lyrics for that song you?
No, that was me and Matt co-wrote that song. He wrote the lyrics to that actually, and I wrote the music.
Oh, I like
Just
it musically.
Dude, you guys are hitting all these things on the head, man, which is great. I just heard you reference Rollins Band, which that song "Liar" is literally one of the cornerstones of what we based this song and band off of. We're like, dude, that song is just like
The best thing about "Liar" is if people didn't buy the single, they don't know was the B-side.
Yeah.
Too Much
Dude.
Right Now. That track is a good track that I never hear anybody mention. But I mean, I love old, late '80s Rollins and definitely
for sure, yeah.
is one of my is probably one of the greatest Rollins band records. But
what you hit on the head was the formula. Essentially, was Bill, who played drums, for the recordings, and he's in my band too, in real life. And we were sitting, Matt was like, you want to, when we were trying to do this, like we'd already established that we were going to write the Duh songs, but he was like, you want to try to take a stab at this, this shit band song? And I was like, yeah, like I'll totally try that. And I remember that was kind of challenge. We were like, how do we do it? But Bill kind of famously broke down the formula. And it's funny that you were like, the music's actually not that bad. That's what he was. He was the one that cracked the code. He was like, he's like, if you listen to any of these songs like this, he's like, when you break it down, the music's actually not really that terrible. He's like, the music's not so bad. But as soon as the haircut guy grabs the microphone, that's when it
the lyrics were so pretentious and I guess intentionally. For this case.
Dude, what are you talking about? My band? You think that wasn't from the heart, dude? Come on.
Yeah, and I always say, and also part of the inspiration for that band is when I was kind of like playing and touring in bands, it was like the early 2000s, which was kind of that emo boom of like emo punk and emo music. And I found that there really was, you could put like a bunch of like phrases or words or nouns into a fishbowl. And as long as you mention like a crow or a blackbird or like razor blades or knives or like, there's just like you just pull it out and you just start rattling off these things. And that was like kind of like that mid 2000, early 2000s emo lyric of like, as Jeff mentioned, the haircut.
Dude, it's refrigerator magnet music.
Yeah, exactly.
Scramble the words around.
Now, Dodd, what was inspiration from that music? And I'm not meaning this to offend because some people might not like these two bands, but I got a real feeling of early Green Day and Pennywise.
I don't think that is an insult at all.
And some people hate on Green Day, and I think they're a pretty important band because they brought a lot of younger people to punk.
I think you can also argue that they're probably even more punk than some of the bands that hate them, which is funny.
Totally.
Maybe not now because it's whatever, but.
I agree.
Who's the band that saved Gilman Street? They got banned from that venue famously for 30-something years, and who's the band that single-handedly pulled them out of the fire?
Yeah.
So whatever. I mean, people can say whatever they want, but it's funny. No, that's fine. Whatever people want to take away, I think. Some of these songs are kind of channeled through me, so we try to write a real record for this band. So, we like to say gleefully nihilistic or whatever. And, in some of the songs, reading the script and I feel like I Want to Die Young was kind of, I was writing that song with a lot of this, what's happening in the movie kind of based, in it, kind of tongue in cheek with I Want to Die Young, being the chorus. But some of these things, like Too High to Cry or any of these other things were just kind of real life, things that just lent themselves nicely to this.
Yeah, and I think they're really catchy songs, and it was done really well, and it seemed to fit the personalities of the bandmates, which I also love because you have three totally different personalities. Jeff, you play more of the crazy comic relief, and then Chet's the drummer who's the nihilist, and Judy is the uptight one. So I think it just worked really well, and the music did seem to fit.
Thanks, dude.
And David and I have a conversation about Pennywise that we hadn't talked about that band in forever, and just some things that had that energy and upbeat and had
the sing song. And
you guys want to know something really cool? Fucking Jim, the singer from Pennywise, actually emailed me. He saw the movie and he loved it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I read that Bloody Disgusting review, and it kind of compared the movie to Green Room, and I was like, okay, Green Room. It just because you have punk music does not mean the movie was like Green Room. I'm sorry.
Totally. But I think that's a lot of people's kind of point of reference, and I think you have to realize too that not everybody is familiar with the subculture. So I kind of take that as a huge compliment.
Oh, I love Green Room. I think it's an awesome movie.
Yeah.
But it's totally, that's such a dark.
Oh yeah. No, I get it. Yeah.
But
there's gonna be a bunch of letterbox reviews like, "What the fuck? I thought I was getting a Green Room."
Yeah, people are like, "Why weren't there any Nazis in this?" You're like, "Well, it's 2020." Well, I guess that would be apropos for 2020, wouldn't it?
No, I did feel directly
that it's Green Room meets The Simpsons.
Yeah.
That's huge. If people say that, come on.
Now, me being a liberal, I was offended by the metalhead scene. I have to find some way to be offended. I was a weird kid. I was like listening to hardcore while having a Public Enemy T-shirt and listening to Metallica.
Yeah, totally.
I was all over the place, but I guess aesthetically, I was more a metalhead.
Yeah.
The metalhead thing, it was so funny because I know dudes exactly like that. Yeah. So it was so
I think that harkens back to the famous metal punk feuds of like the early days, like the 70s, early 80s. Like there's famously, and dude, I would love to like remake this shirt because I fucking love it so much. There's like a famous picture of when the Ramones opened up for Black Sabbath. Actually, they opened up for them for like I think 5 or 6 shows, and people just were like, because their label was trying shit out. I forget, they had them open for like REO Speedwagon, like some real weird, but like the Ramones signed to a major label. There were some weird things that they tried, they couldn't fit them into anything, and so their management and label didn't know what to do with them. But they opened for Sabbath, and their fans, like Sabbath fans, like there's this awesome picture of this dude just holding a T-shirt that says "Kill a Punk for Rock and Roll," which I love, dude. That's like one of my favorite things. I think that's where a lot of that comes from.
Yeah, I never really understood it. It's like, why can't you listen to Cannibal Corpse and Dead Kennedys? I think
now a lot of that has, there's a lot of integration now. A lot of those lines are.
Well, Deathcore. Deathcore did away with all that.
There was some crossover, especially with the LA scene and like DRI and Adolescence, because there was some very thrashy.
Like Motorhead too. I mean, that's a huge crossover of those two worlds. And I mean, bands like now, like I like the tragic passing of Riley from Power Trip, like bands like that, like that's fucking, those guys are awesome. That's a huge crossover band.
Yeah, you don't have it, but I do remember. I'm a child of the '80s, who, again, because I grew up in Staten Island, New York. So not only was I like a huge Ramones fan, I was a huge Wu-Tang fan, and I was the weirdo. So
that's all. See, I think and that's the thing about punk rock. Where people try to put things like this into a box. And it kind of transcends to the spirit of what it is, right? Like Wu-Tang, like that shit, like that's punk as fuck. Like
Oh yeah,
You know?
early hip hop was all punk. That was all independent DIY.
All of it. Yeah, and so I think that is really, what kind of this movie, I don't want to say makes fun of, but makes a caricature of is like the early feuds between like where people were so apt to put it into a box. And what's cool now is a lot we've gone through, like a lot of this is like where you're like, oh, this is all the same stuff. This is all the same thing. Like there's all these people that are, raging against the machine, so to speak.
Now, Matt, because I couldn't really place it because the film does feel kind of timeless. It kind of felt like early 2000-ish, maybe late 90s. What did you have like a time period in mind when writing this?
Yeah, I mean, like the one thing I wanted to go for, and again on a micro budget, like I realized there's a fucking sign that says Wi-Fi code in the green room. But I like the whole, like talking with like the production designer and wardrobe, who was Wiki Mendoza, who was also co-producer, like who was really kind of instrumental in coming up with a lot of the look, and she designed like a lot of the stuff. Like I said, I wanted it to be like kind of decade ambiguous, so like I always would love for you can't, I mean, it really means a lot when people are like, man, I couldn't tell if it was the 80s or 90s or early 2000s. I mean, if I could do it, I would love to do kind of like early to mid 90s, but we purposefully tried to keep it ambiguous just because we knew with budget limitations, like we wouldn't be able to control what cars are on the street or what cars are being passed or, what's in like certain locations. Like we probably can't take certain furniture out or certain set pieces. So yeah, I wanted it to be decade ambiguous, but I also realized that there were like a bunch of continuity, not continuity, but like IMDb errors that people would point out.
One of my favorite things is hearing people like people that we don't know. Like I've seen like reviews or whatever, and I've heard people say, like what when we push it, in the trailer or whatever, they're like a cassette tape. And they're like, what is this, 1953? And I'm like, I don't think you know about the 50s even. People see me and Peck. I saw this one guy who's like, that must be his daddy. And I'm like, that's a compliment to me, but, I don't know if you're getting this, but cool.
Well, if it's any reassurance, I don't really, we interview a lot of indie filmmakers and guys that put together a film for $5,000-$10,000. So we're pretty versed in what goes on behind the scenes. I never felt for a second that this movie was lacking a budget. So whatever you did it right.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, that just speaks to, and it always sounds like a line, but it is, I cannot be more sincere that one of the things beyond the cast that we like, it's the reason why it was kind of a perfect storm is, working on a micro budget, you just luck out because every crew member has to wear, like, I'm sure you guys know, like a dozen hats, maybe more.
Yeah.
And almost every single person that was a part of our crew were so hardworking and really made every dollar seem like $1,000 that we spent. So that's just the lottery, And
it does come across because we interview a lot of filmmakers, and a lot of the times when you're looking at films like this, you got to look at the potential and the concept as opposed to just fully the execution. You have to keep that in mind, and I never felt that I had to do that with your film. It just it stand alone as a really good film.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially looking at it like as does demo tape. It's like, what could you do given a budget? And I'd like to also mention that much like our glorious supreme leader, we talk about micro budget films. All we had was a small loan from our parents of like $48 million. So I mean, imagine what we could do with more.
Well, Matt, how did you come across David? How did you cast David? How did that come to be?
Oh man, like just God smiling down on us. Really, like I knew from the beginning, like having written the script, that Peckerhead was going to be the scariest one to cast because obviously, like you said, it's the titular character. But also, like, if you have somebody who just doesn't get that role, it will be like just it'll be an assault. It'll be just it'll be terrible. So it's really crazy. We did, I think, 2-3 days of casting just for Peckerhead. We did a casting call, which for us, with no budget, literally our pre-production, I think we had $500, something like that. For the actual pre-production, that's like all your money, right? And David was not a part of those first few days. And I remember after the third day, we really didn't have another like formal day scheduled. And my producers were like, listen, like, we're a few months out from shooting. We've already committed. Like, one of these guys has to be good. And I'm telling you, it was such a nightmare of like nobody coming close that it was like, and I'm not like usually a diva director where I'm like, I can't go forward with this. But I was like, none of these guys I feel comfortable going forward with. I'm telling you, like, a couple of days after that kind of like exchange with the producers, David sent in a video like a casting call. He was in Florida at the time, and we were doing our casting call in Brooklyn, which is where like my home base is. And the producer forwarded it to me, and she's like, I think he's pretty good. What do you think? And I was just like, we have to just get him up because he is exactly, he read for the diner scene, and he basically did like an unbroken 5.5 minute kind of take, just reading by himself with somebody, reading the other lines off camera. And it's David. It's the person that you see in that film. And then luckily David is just the kindest, warmest individual you could luck out to work with. And really the rest was history. He let us work with him.
That is true.
That is true.
And man,
No,
I
was totally stoked. I'm a huge horror buff. And so, I mostly do theater. And so when I found out about the call, I was down in Florida. I also live in Brooklyn, but I was down in Florida doing a play. And it was so serious. It was like this play you would not believe. It was like an hour and a half, no intermission. I'm on stage the whole time, and basically I'm dying. So it's an hour and a half of me like dying in a coal mine that's collapsed. It was it was a laugh riot.
It was just a precursor to 2020. It was getting you used to it.
Right. So when I got the scene to tape, I was just like, oh my God, this is like hilarious and fun and completely different. And so I was just stoked. And then I finished
was it Coal Country?
No, the name of the play?
Yeah.
No, it's a play called North Side Hollow.
Okay. I knew Coal Country had something to do with the disaster, and it was about coal mine. So
yeah, is that the one that they did at the Public? That's kind of a musical.
I don't know if it is. That's all I really know about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
it was at the Public though, so you probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah. So I finished the run of that play, and came back to New York, and luckily the timing was just kind of perfect, and we all did a chemistry read, and I just fell in love with everybody who was in the room, So I feel super lucky to have fallen into this.
Well, I remember that read too that we did. I remember Matt showing me David's his video submission, and we both kind of were like, well, this is the dude that, we were like, if this guy does it. And then we did a read in New York. We read with a lot of people, and none of them came close. Like Matt was saying, I remember some people literally, they're coming to read like for Nick, the hot model dude, and being like, I got to read for Peck though. You're like, and
it
we're
looks
like,
you're like a baby deer.
Yeah, but also we were like, okay, this, like, we'll entertain this idea, And this, just a dude ripping his shirt off and like putting on a Joe Dirt wig and being like, "God damn y'all!" And you're like, "All right," like no, like the Southern accent wasn't good. We're like, "Okay, thanks," But when David came, it was kind of literally like we had already seen the tape, and we were like, "I can't believe he's like actually coming to do it." But yeah, I mean, I remember actually we all got in the same room together. It was me, Ruby, Chet, and David at Columbia. And we did it, and I stayed behind obviously because I know Matt and we were working on this already together, and we were like, well, that was it. I mean, even that first day when we all read together, we kind of just were crossing our fingers and we were like, I think we know who should do this. Like, I just hope everybody wants to, and they did, and kind of the rest is history. So yeah.
Well, and from what I'm told by actors, one of the biggest compliments I can give, and I can give this to you guys, is that I didn't feel like you guys were acting.
Oh.
So it just felt
great.
so natural, and it seemed, I never once thought, it never made me be analytical about how you portrayed the character. You just encompassed that character. You guys did an amazing job.
That means a lot
thanks.
to hear, man. I'm new to this,
so nice.
So this is not, it's hard for me to watch myself. Like I don't know. Like I'm kind of like going on other people's word. If Matt is happy with it, I'm like, okay. So I'm like, all right, man, if you want me to.
Jeff, that was David that said you were good. I didn't say anything.
Well, that's true. That's true. That's to this day, I still don't know.
Now, did Matt write all your speeches on your hand?
Well, here's the thing. I'm doing this interview from a closet with a pillowcase over my head, and every 10 minutes Matt comes in and sprays me with a hose. So I still don't know if I'm doing a good job. I guess if he feeds me tomorrow, I'll know.
Yeah, less hose sprays for doing good.
Yeah. If the water's warm, I'm doing a good job.
I do have to say that some of the credit in the performances, because it is a team effort, like you bring what you bring, but then there's the text, and that's all Matt, and then there's the direction, which is also Matt. So it was really a partnership, and he definitely deserves some credit for these performances.
Oh, definitely. Now, how much of this was on a page? Did Matt, you allow them to improvise a bit, or was most of this in the script?
I wouldn't say every word was on the screen, but I mean, for example, like there were moments when maybe Chet or David or Ruby or Jeff would say like, hey, what if I did it this way? Or hey, this doesn't feel right. Like, what if I just switched around the wording? And I'm always cool with that. Or if we were on such a tight schedule that we really didn't have time to do any really kind of fun improvising,
Yeah.
That I think it wasn't because I didn't trust them or they didn't want to do it. I think it was just we have to get 8 pages in at the end of today. By the end of today,
we only get 3 takes.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the reason why especially somebody like we've said it before, but somebody like David is you're just when you think back of how lucky you are, is David would always, we would always wait. I don't know why, but his single or his shot would be the last one, and especially a lot of the dialogue scenes. And obviously, we're always dragging ass just because there's not enough time, not enough people. And it would basically be David, we wouldn't tell him, but it'd basically be we have to get this in 2-3 takes max. And David would give you, as an editor, he would give you gold because he would his first take, maybe we'd do a safety for the second take, but he'd be able to do it without having to do a pickup or having to do anything like that. He would just basically bring it in the first, or if necessary, we'd do the first half again. So David's just one of those people that just saves you saves your ass on so many days where you might have to pay overtime or just lose that day.
Well, and it felt like it flowed so well. That's why I felt maybe you gave them a little more range, because, and that's a testament to your dialogue writing, Matt, because it just felt so realistic. It didn't feel very forced.
We saved a lot of. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
Well, we saved a lot of David's performances for last because we knew he could get it he really kind of. He's like Michael Jordan. He comes in big, like I'm serious. When the pressure's on, and you're like, "Cool, we have 3 seconds left, in the game." It's like put David in, and he, really, it's like get the ball to David. Like he'll kill it. And the other thing is the reason why it took so long is, everybody got the sides the night before and whatever, and they were printed out. Mine were on Post-it notes, and I learned to read for this movie.
Oh my God!
Well, that's awesome, Matt. You're helping Jeff learn how to read.
Listen, it's we were trying to do a sequel to Nell before any of this. So this comes about. No, I mean, but in all seriousness, I'm so glad that people really like the movie and the writing and stuff like that. But when you could have the best writing in the world if you don't have people that can really perform and perform well together. It really is that the cast is just so and we got so lucky that this sounds like a line, but I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. I just wouldn't say anything. But everyone was our first choice. We had a bunch of people read for Judy, and some were really solid, but Chet stood far and above the rest. Same with Ruby, same with David and Jeff. I've always, every project since I've known Jeff, I wanted him involved in. So you just kind of really luck out that you get the best people to work with.
Yeah, and Chet, and not to take anything from her, Chet did an amazing job. She encompassed Judy, and she held. She's kind of like the moral center of the whole film, and she encompassed that.
But
and it's like
all the extra characters like Greg,
Nick, totally,
God, yeah.
Nick, and fucking Ryan Conrad, who's a fucking genius.
That's the thing where I think it shines too, and not to, it's weird to say of a film that you're in, but this is just compliment to my friend Matt and director. That's also the supplemental characters. That's much like I feel like that's a very Coen Brothers-esque thing where the supplemental characters are they shine so much too, and where somebody might only be on screen for a very little amount of time, but you're like, oh, that guy was great, that was great too, like Nick and Shiloh and all of these little characters shine so bright in their small amount of time on screen.
Oh, I agree with that, because I'd like to see more of this world with see what
right.
I want to see Nick in what was the name of his band? Piss Face.
I have a question about Piss Face. What is there a band that Piss Face would be like musically?
Oh man,
that's a good question.
Anal cunt.
Well, but Piss Face, I would imagine maybe would be good.
Yeah.
So what would you say, Matt? That's actually a really good question.
Yeah, Piss Face, it was an inspiration, and I won't name the band because I don't want to insult. I don't want it to come as an insult because it really isn't. But Piss Face is, there's a band that I used to know. That it was kind of like a traditional kind of straightforward punk band, but their lead singer was such a nice guy, but one of the dumbest people you'd ever just this dude that
it's okay. Peter Steele's dead now. We can
try when you're saddled.
That's terrible, Dave.
That's terrible. That is terrible.
When you're saddled up to the bar, you want to avoid conversation because he'll just say stuff that he doesn't mean what he says, but he just kind of says stuff that you're like, oh man, and the girls love him and fawn over him, but then every girl that goes on a couple dates can't go more than a month with him because he's such a sweet, he's a himbo. So yeah, he's inspired definitely by a band and by a particular singer songwriter, but I don't want to say it because the guy's actually really nice.
Yeah, and like I said, the characters, it's you can see going in different directions and coming back to this film and encompassing them into new plots, and I found that really interesting. And just like Jeff said, it's even the side characters are written really well.
Yeah, I think it's the thing that I wanted to go for, and this is really probably why people appreciate the side characters is, and it sounds like something that, I would tell myself like 15 years ago, like, you fucking idiot, why didn't you think about this? But not, like, what I really tried to do with the movie with a limited budget is still not waste any single second. So if you're going to have a character in that scene, make the most of that character's like presence, or make most of that scene. Like, even I remember when it's such a small thing, but when Judy's on the phone trying to find a van after revealing the Peck monster that next morning, and she's looking out and she sees, Ruby and Jeff kind of doing that thing, where Ruby takes off his shirt because they're wearing the same outfit. Something like that was just like, I just had a scene of her on the phone, and I was like, man, I should try and like get something out of this. Like, I should try and get like a gimmick or a joke or like something that'll make people smile or just kind of like help to perpetuate this further. And that's how I felt with like a lot of those side characters, is I wanted their like presence to feel earned. And that means a lot that like people would want to see them extended in other stories or other like narratives.
Now, you don't have to answer this question or not, Matt, because I know you've written more on the subject, but is there any more you can give us to Peck's background?
Oh man, I don't think I can, because actually in the second one there's a little bit of a reveal of his backstory, but like David mentioned, with all of them, I gave kind of like a abridged kind of Bible of their life. That like, and I asked them not to share any of that with each other, because especially with Max and Judy, the people that knew each other prior to the actual film story, it's things that kind of informs how they treat or how they kind of like what the interaction is going to be like. But with Peck, like, I don't have, there's not like any type of like really deep lore that I shared with him, but I definitely shared like, how he became what he is, and how those first like few, months were, and then like basically like how he got from, how he got this affliction, or how he became this thing to this very moment. But some of that I actually want to kind of harness for a sequel. So I don't mean to be that guy that's like, no, I cannot reveal my secrets.
No. I knew when I said that you might want to be a little discreet. But yeah, just for people who haven't seen the movie yet, it feels like Peckerhead is almost feels like a hybrid between a werewolf and a vampire. Would that be a safe assumption?
So I mean, like, definitely the werewolf vibe I'm definitely feeling. I mean, like, one of the things is actually in the original script I had like a lot more kind of backstory and lore packed into it, and I felt that it actually like really did kind of slow the action down. In like already the second act I feel like drags a little bit. It dragged it like way down, and like my wife, who at that time was my girlfriend, and she did the wardrobe and production design and all that, she was like, hey, just, give like a few very simple rules that people can like really wrap their mind around really quick, and then just like keep going. And it was like one of the best, looking back at those early drafts, is probably one of the best pieces of advice I got on that script, because I felt that like, you don't want it to be like willy-nilly. You want to have some rules to the world, but you also don't want to like pack it too much, because you really are trying to just keep the energy and the action moving.
Well, and I liked how he is only a monster for such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And so that kept it did keep the film moving and building the characters more. Was there anything behind? It's 13 minutes, right? He's from 12 to 12:13. Is there anything behind the fact that it's only 13 minutes? Is that something that might be revealed in further films?
No, I mean, I hate to to pull the curtain on the wizard here, but. No, like the only really, like, it sounds flip maybe, but it's not, is 13 minutes. One is we didn't have a lot of money in our budget, so really like we can only see Monster Peck like so much. That was really like in large part why, I chose 13 just because, like, should it be 10, should it be 15? And it's like, 13, there's always kind of this idea of bad luck or omens or whatever.
Yeah.
13 sounds cool, but really in terms of keeping it that short it ended up really working in terms of story, and I think it helped the film, but in reality it was all budgetary. It's like we just did not have I could not afford the sequences I'd like to have of Monster Peck, so we just tried to keep it to like 3 or 4
couldn't
times.
afford 14 minutes.
In the first draft, it was 31 minutes, but we had to make it more aerodynamic.
Are you sure it was 31, or was it just your reading comprehension?
It was actually, it was like the Offspring song. He asked for a 13, but they drew a 31. So,
And going into that, there's probably 3 or 4 gore set pieces in this film, but they're done really well.
Sorry, go ahead.
And I was saying I guess that could be, budget. I know budget on gore it's hard to find the money to do it and somebody to do it right. But you guys kind of went balls to the wall on those 3 or 4 set pieces.
I think that's what Matt does so well is, I think that was very strategic on his part. And that's the thing is like, I think he was like, let's just make those 3 or 4 moments shine. Matt, I'm sure you can speak more to that, but. Yeah.
Well, I was saying that I told Steven before he saw the film, I was like, yeah, they Sub-Zero at Metalhead. You got to check this out.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's Matt's, I think that is Matt's, well, not his only, that's one of his true talents as a filmmaker is stretching $1. And, I saw it on the first project that we worked together on is Larry Gone Demon, but really on this, it's really pretty remarkable. And as you guys said, you couldn't tell what the budget was, but I mean, Matt is really, really good at stretching $1 and not in a cheap way of being like, guys, we only have this. It's really getting the bang for your buck is what I saw Matt do. Everything from location scouting and just all of that to like the gore budget and everything. It's really impressive. So if anybody's out there that's listening, he's really good at stretching that. I'm serious. But I mean, that might sound like a joke, but he really is good at that.
Yeah. A big shout out should also go to Jared, who did the gore.
Yeah, I was
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't mean to step on David's toes. Yeah, I mean, like I was gonna go in with that is, like we joke around and we were on a strap budget, but the thing is, like the reason how we happened upon Jared is, we had gone to a bunch of effects houses, and I'm telling you, they were nice to us, but they like kind of laughed us out of the room because like basically like we would have to spend 50 times what our budget was to even like get to talking to them. Like what happened is like one of the effects houses, one of the guys that actually read, I'm not sure if he read the whole script or he read a part of it, and he's like, listen, I really like the script. There's no way in hell I can like work with you guys. But there's this kid that used to intern with us. We give him some like freelance work every now and again. I know he's trying to do his own not post, but his own effects house type of thing. He'll probably work he'll probably work with your budget. Maybe you have to tweak it a little bit. And he gave us Jared, who is our effects guru, his number. And Jared, what's really amazing is with that script, I really tried to be, very smart and tactile. And I knew I wanted like a big set piece in the open. I knew I wanted I wanted a big set piece kind of more towards the middle. But like I had, every set piece basically set in the first couple of drafts. And Jared really, there were very few, if any, things that he's like, listen, I can't do that, or you can't afford that. He really tried to make everything work with the script and our budget. And I mean, his assistant Sean, was also like a complete like lovely person to work with. But the reason why I think the movie, like people also are talking about how great the gore is Jared really brought all of those things to life. Like we really didn't have to compromise and kind of like shortchange ourselves with any of those moments in the film.
Well, and I think a big part of liking the gore is that especially with like the last real big set piece with Shiloh and the band, being murdered, is that we wanted to see that happen. So that makes the gore
right. Right. And they, to speak to Jared and Sean, they crushed it. And just, I feel like also they fit into our traveling circus so well. Like when they came on, because they weren't there the whole time, and we did a lot of the gore in the last week. So mean, they came on and they just fit perfectly, and they got it, and they were great. They killed it, and they're rad dudes. So shout out to them.
Now, on the physical media, me and Steven are both physical media lovers. So, we might be old school with that, but we buy way more shit than we should. Dread Central, are they doing the distro for the physical media side?
Yeah, they are. I mean, right now we have a Blu-ray of the film out, which has like a commentary with Jeff, David, myself, Wiki, who did production design, wardrobe, co-produced, and Ryan, who played Shiloh and was our unit production manager. And it has like a short film that I did, a music video that Jeff and I worked on. Yeah, so we have that, but we're hoping to do, like more releases. Like we'd love to do a VHS release, and we'd love to do like a real deal. And I know Jeff probably would love to talk to that more. Is like a real deal release of Does record, like an LP vinyl.
That'd be an awesome package too. But I was just giving a shout. Dread Central they brought our buddy Billy Pon on to do Circus of the Dead, which is a film we love. He's actually coming on in a few weeks. So Dread Central is actually they're putting out some good films, and I hope the situation with them as well is good for you guys. But I'm just saying that they are putting out some good films, so it's nice to see that.
Yeah, the Dread's been really great. The process of releasing a film. This is the first time that I've ever had a film distributed. So you're always kind of worried about, the experience, of not being heard or not having like, your opinion valued or respected. I mean, and everyone that we worked with there has been great so far. And likewise, like, with the other films that they've picked up, like, Butt Boy and Red Letter Day, and like you guys said, Circus of the Dead. I think it was a really great fit for us.
Yeah, it's they have a good lineup there, and I hope they have a good following, so I hope more eyes get put on the film. But you're also doing it digitally as well. You guys can find the film on Amazon. What is in the future for you, Matt?
Well, sleep probably. No. So I have a few scripts that I'm ready to roll on, like a few that I feel really good, that if I had a couple months prep, I'd be ready to shoot. And it's just like writing and trying to get those films off the ground. So if I can do a quick plug, if you liked Uncle Peckerhead, one of the things that like it really means a lot with you guys at Sadistic Cinema, or just like any of the interviews or anybody that even tweets at us or posts on Instagram or anywhere or just tells a friend, like you guys said, it really means a lot because we are such a small DIY scrappy operation that every time, like I never, when I see a movie I like, I used to never like tweet about it or like post something. But now I know that like that stuff actually means a lot because that means another person hears of your film that had never heard of it before. And especially like outside of certain circles, I feel that we're largely kind of still unseen, not to anyone's fault, but just being such a small film. So I would say, if you liked our film, please tell people. And please let us know that you liked it because it means a lot to us. And if you want to know about future projects, if you want to know more about where Uncle Peckerhead's going over the next year, you can visit either unclepeckerhead.com or subtletyrex.com. They both take you to the same page. And there you can read about, like, there's a couple scripts I have from the Duh universe. You can read kind of synopses on one of them. You can read about another project that I'm hoping to turn into a series. So it's, just trying to get some stuff off the ground. So if anybody has a dump truck full of money and wants to park it in front of my one-bedroom apartment, I'm here waiting.
Or even like a Prius full of money. That would pretty good.
And one thing I feel, and this goes for music and movies, and it's more of that underground that feeling is when you turn your friends onto something that they love and you're the first to find it, that's a high in of itself. Like when you found that punk band and you tell all your friends about it and they never heard of it and they love it and it becomes something that's all mutually respected in your crew. I think that's so important to have that word of mouth.
Totally. I mean, that's what this movie is. We got to thank everybody so far that has been, all of our friends and family and bands that have been sharing it. Like, yeah, we and the festivals that have put us on, like anybody that has helped us so far, like you guys, honestly, like we can't thank you enough. It's so rad, and we're overwhelmed with anything that has happened so far. Like it was a personal thing for me, playing music and all of this. All of the friends and bands that have shared this is just it has taken me like aback so much. I can't thank everybody enough for just sharing our little movie, and bands that I don't know like that. This is awesome that people are starting to check this out and identify with it and share it. So that means a lot to all of us. So thank you for that.
And Jeff, anything you want to plug or websites or anything like that? And if when you come to Charleston, we'll hang out. But
dude, I'd love to, man. Absolutely. If I get down to Charleston, I'd love to hang out with you guys. Especially at a safe distance and when it's safe to do so. I know your boy McMaster's down there.
Oh yeah, he don't care.
He's been making it hard on you. So
oh Jesus, man! Don't even give me
your back.
I call him Froghorn Leghorn.
Yeah. But no, I play in a band called $500 with Bill, who played the drums in the movie.
Okay.
And so yeah, our band's called $500. We're on Bandcamp or any of the streaming stuff. We just actually put a record out a couple of weeks ago. So
awesome. What's the name of the record?
It's called This Welcome Mat is a Landmine. It has 2 songs on it. It's a 7-inch vinyl. So it's got, but yeah, we have a single out called Spinal right now. You can go check it out on any streaming platform. But yeah, $500 is the band, and check the record out. And yeah, man, check out Subtlety Rex. It's got, we'd love to make another one of these things. So yeah.
Well, if anything, we need a double disc Uncle Peckerhead.
Yeah.
If not vinyl, at least get the CD of some dub music. And
I don't know what Matt feels comfortable with me saying. I won't say too much, but we are working on a DAW record, man. I mean, we're very
awesome
to have it.
You can say it. Yeah, say it.
All right, if that's cool to say, then yeah. No, Bill and I are about to go down and record. We're about to record a DAW record.
Awesome.
So, and it's going to be legit. Like, we're going to record the songs from this movie, and hopefully a few more that are not in the movie, just to make a real, actual DAW record for people that like it. And a shout out to Augusta, my friend Augusta, who did the singing voice of Judy from Kaitana, and her new band Gladdy is awesome. Go check that out. And Matt, her wonderful partners in Gladdy, and he recorded all the songs for the movie too. So check out Gladdy, they rule. And Augusta's going to, she's down to do this record with us too. So it's going to be a fun family collab.
I got a duh question.
Yeah.
What was the Misfit cover?
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
I mean, that's a question for Matt.
I would say probably 20 Eyes or I don't know, a Hollywood Babylon maybe, if they wanted to get really weird.
I think Where Eagles Dare.
Judy.
Oh my God, Where Eagles Dare is great.
Where Eagles Dare, or Horror Business.
Yeah. I mean, really, they could. I would love to see a just Misfits set.
Yeah.
We can do that. Hey, who wants to pay for it? We'll do anything.
Yeah, you come down to the Tin Roof. Well, you might have to find a promoter.
Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Johnny Puke, Steven, Aaron, Tyler, Art, all the Tin Roof.
See, I didn't even know. Like, I kind of stopped with.
I love the Tin Roof. Shout out to all that.
I didn't know Tin Roof was Johnny and stuff because I remember him back from the old like G.G. Allen days.
Johnny Puke is, I looked up to, I still do. He's a rad dude, and that was like one of my punk mentors growing up. So to be in the same town with that dude, playing shows, and he put my old band on a lot. I mean, like we played even with Cletus back in the day and Johnny Puke's birthdays, like Johnny was huge, a huge figure for me and formative figure growing up. And still, I love that dude and the whole Tin Roof crew. So shout out to those people, and shout out to the Sparrow and Cammy and BJ, and shout out to everybody in Charleston. I love you guys. Yeah.
Well, David, it's your turn. What kind of plugs can we get in there? How can people find you and give you more parts, because we need to see you in more movies?
I'm not on much social media. Like, I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. But I'm on Instagram, Dave Litt, Davelit. And as soon as movies are shooting again and plays are happening again, I'll be working again.
Yeah, we all hope that soon, man. It's so tough right now. It's either go out there and risk it and risk an audience, or just stay home. So it's a hard decision to make.
They can't even protect Batman.
I know.
Right.
I mean, Batman's got it.
Batman's.
So until then,
The Rock.
They can probably find me delivering pizzas in Brooklyn.
You'll find David doing Uber Eats. Hey, don't worry. So many actors are doing that right now, David. You'll fit right.
I get it, man. There's no shame.
And one more question, Matt. Musical influence. What are some of your favorite bands?
Oh man, I mean, I hate to be a cop out, but it's an ever changing list of groups. I think right now what I've been spinning a lot.
Let's say classic. What are the classic childhood to teenage?
Yeah, probably.
Bands?
I mean, definitely when I was growing up, I was like old school punk stuff. So love the Ramones, love the Misfits, love Bad Brains, Black Flag, Minor Threat. Fugazi, but I also, that's the reason why with the metalhead thing, and I know no one called me out in this interview, but I love Metallica's first 4 albums. I love Slayer. I love
the Black Album's where it died. The Black Album's where everything died.
Yeah, so I really love everything, and I mean the Beastie Boys are probably one of, if not my favorite groups. So, I love, especially now, there's, a ton of, really great, newer bands. I know Jeff and I both love on this band, The Dirty Nil, Mannequin Pussy. I've been listening to, Schoolboy Q's records a lot lately. That's been playing a lot. I don't know, really. I mean, it's a pretty eclectic mix, and it really depends on, the mood. But definitely, old school punk, all the kind of our band could be your life groups.
And what about you, Jeff? What are the early bands that?
I mean, everything that Matt just said. We're very similar in our taste and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think now it's more just there's just such a people are like punk is dead or whatever. It's there's a plethora of bands that are always doing it, and still, I mean, look to your own city for inspiration, and I live in Philadelphia now, so just there's so many
that's
good,
such a great music sound, man.
And that's why I moved here,
I lived in Baltimore
Charleston.
for 15 years.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Baltimore is Baltimore, DC, Philly, and New York 5 hours away. So there's so much music.
There's so much good music here right now.
I know Questlove. I've known Questlove since I was about 21. The Roots guys.
That's crazy. That's awesome, man.
So it's a cool city to be doing it.
Totally, yeah. There's so many good bands here, it's insane. So it's just rad to live here and get to see it happen all around you. Even in this quarantine time, there's so many good bands putting out records right now. It's great.
That's the big thing I miss about being up east, up north.
Gladdy is about to put out a new record. Augusta, who just did stuff on this. Soul Glow just put out a new record. It's rad. Mannequin Pussy. My friend Max Stern just put out a new record. There's it's everyday thing here in Philly, and it's great. Just Just
Yeah, if you're ever in Baltimore, check out the Auto Bar and the Sidebar.
Oh, love those places.
Oh, you been there? Awesome, man.
Totally.
I used to do promotion for Auto Bar.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I actually just donated some money to help keep that place going. I'm trying to donate any money to anybody right now that's struggling. So
It's sad, man.
I know.
Yeah, the first Misfits show I ever saw was in Baltimore. Unfortunately, it was Chris Graves, but I'm only 41, so
Michael
Mike
Graves.
Graves. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, man. I played the Auto Bar. My old band, the Holy Mess. We played a lot of those places. So yeah, I feel you.
That's awesome, man. Well, Steven, anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, I think I need to plug a couple things. I've been a little silent on this because I haven't wanted to jack our own platform here. We've been wanting to, give this platform to our guests fully and stuff and not make it about ourselves. But since the Indiegogos are about to be coming out and we're getting near the final edit of this film and the VFX in it and everything, I was, or am, director of photography on Bad Girls, from Chris Bickle, who directed The Theater Girl.
Who's another punk. He started off as a punk rocker as well.
Yeah, Inhumanity in the early 90s.
Sweet.
Around here, hardcore band. One of the members of Inhumanity owns the Jam Room in Columbia, and so many records have come out of there. And actually a lot of audio commentary that's been on... Umbrella stuff and Scorpion Releasing and Shout Factory and all that stuff has actually been recorded. All of Paul Talbot's stuff he does at the Jam Room there. But the Bad Girls at the end of October, the Indiegogo is going to be released. So you can pre-order the Blu-ray and everything. The movie is just about finished post-production. And we're going to have Chris on pretty soon. Bad Girls is coming soon, so please check that out on Facebook. And it might be easier since there's so many like Bad Girls sounding sites that are completely not a punk rock road movie. Go to Films Cola Cheetah, like COLACITTA on Facebook, and you'll see posts shared from the Bad Girls page. And just be on the lookout for the Indiegogo campaign that'll be coming soon. And if you like exploitation or action movie, check out Theater Girl. It's very subversive, I'll say.
Did you add drug into that?
No, I didn't. But,
drug too. You have to have drug.
Yeah. It's a very trippy movie. A lot of Chris's films have a psychedelic aspect to it, and I expect that from somebody that likes Liquid Sky so much. So.
Oh, I love Liquid Sky.
Well, awesome. I just got to Martthew, David, and Jeff. I just have to thank you for coming on. I will treasure this conversation because I do appreciate your guys' art so much. And one of the best things about a film nerd is learning about a new director that you can watch. So, Matt, I'll definitely be watching out for your work. And, David, I loved your performance. I thought it was brilliant. And, Jeff, I loved Max. Max is just so funny and hilarious. And so I'll be looking out for all three of you guys.
Thanks so much, man.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for having us, man.
Yeah, it really means a lot. Thank you so much for loving on the movie and having us and allowing us to just have a conversation. It means a lot.
Awesome. So this has been Sadistic Cinema. Look out for our next show. It should be coming up next week. But as always, it's great having these conversations with filmmakers, actors. We have all types of people on here, but it's been fun. So look out for our next episode, and everybody have a great night.